Jim from the FHB forum wrote, he says, the deck attached to my house is 36 years old and was built when the house was new. It's 12 by 12 and attached to the house with a ledger board. There are 4 by 4 posts and poured concrete piers. The joists are 2 by 8, 16 inches on center. The deck boards are 1 by 4. The deck surface is approximately 22 inches above the ground, and everything is pressure treated. The deck isn't used much except for the barbecue, and I've only stained it a few times over the years. I recently pressure washed it and was going to stain it, but I noticed that one of the deck boards has a split and a knot, and a few others had problems at knots. My plan was to remove some of the boards to check the condition of the joist and the ledger. The deck boards are attached with 2.5-inch screw shank nails and are bare to remove. If the framing was in good shape and I was going to just replace some or all of the deck boards, if the framing was in good shape, I was going to just replace some or all of the deck boards. I checked the posts at the pier level and didn't find any problems. I poked the joists via the floorboard gaps and everything was solid there, but there was no waterproofing material on the tops of the joists. Would you A, replace just the bad deck boards, or B, replace all of the deck boards with the same type of decking and add waterproofing, or C, replace the deck boards with a maintenance-free decking material and add waterproofing? What's got me up in the air is the longevity of the joist and ledger, knowing that waterproofing was not done. Thank you. What do you think, Mike?
Jim doesn't mention where he lives, so whether it's a dry or a wet climate, and it doesn't mention what type or how old the deck is. If it was east of the rock,
his house is 36 years old, and he thinks the deck was built at that time.
Okay, I missed that in the description. Sorry. Well, yeah, there it is, right at the top. Sorry. I'm like, how did I miss that? Okay, so if he's east of the Rockies, then there's a better than average chance that that his deck is framed out of southern yellow pine that was treated with CCA, chromated copper arsenate. That is pretty much indestructible lumber. So if I wouldn't worry, Jim, about the integrity of the joists, even though they don't have what today we would use is putting caps, whether it's tar paper splines or whether it's a peel and stick material on top of each joist to minimize the amount of moisture that goes in through the cracks. That treatment is just like almost bulletproof. So the lumber is likely to last many more years without any waterproofing. So make your choice of whatever decking you want. Make that your guiding idea there, whether you want to just replace a couple boards for a few more years and get the most life out of the decking that's on there, the ones that aren't have the knots and the cracking, and then maybe give yourself a few more years to think about what you would like to have, whether it's a composite material or a pressure treated decking material or something different.
Brian, you got thoughts on this?
I only agree with Mike. I decide what you want. If you want an aesthetic upgrade, go for it. Your deck's been there a long time. Maybe if that sounds exciting, fun project, and it's going to improve the appearance of your decks. Awesome. Otherwise, a couple new deck boards and fire up the barbecue.
I wish Matt Milham was here because he'd tell him to rip this all down and put a stone patio in its place, right?
Yeah, using the brick from the last house that he would also have torn down.
I was just gonna say, like Mike's point, that this is the good stuff, right? Like I would not replace this with something modern because the materials just don't last as long. We have a piece coming out in Fine Homebuilding that Doug Horgan wrote about how the new pressure treating formulas are not as reliable or long lasting as CCA. And we're 15 plus years into it now, and their limitations are starting to show up. On my own deck as an example, which was built in 2010 or 2011. So Brian, your little porch on your house, what decking material did you use, and did you make it easy to replace it when the time comes?
I did both. I have two small decks and a little entry porch that I did all with pressure treated, and I kind of had in mind that if at the time I was building a whole house and the budget was what it was. It was, it was tight. And I decided at the time that was a, budgetary decision that I was going to make. I like wood. So for me, it would have been pressure treated or something very expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So pressure treated worked. But I always had this thought in mind that like, if I, at some point they're small, at some point, if I want to upgrade it, I'll upgrade it. But, the way my sense of practicality kicks in, like, I've been living with these, decks and porches for a couple of years, and they've weathered to a nice gray, and, they're just fine. And I don't see myself ever upgrading them unless or until the deck boards start failing.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah.
So So then what do you do? Do you put an expensive hardwood down, or do you put down PT again? You said you're not going to use the plastic composites. I guess I'm asking because this is a situation I'm facing myself.
Yeah, the plastic composites, we could get into like we could get into an environmental discussion that would, where we would just run around in circles.
Well, I don't care about that.
And I know you don't care about the climate, Patrick. But those questions are hard ones to answer, although now we do have some good tools to help us answer them. Anyway, I think it's an aesthetic and personal decision. And, do you want, how important is maintenance to you? What are your aesthetic preferences? I certainly think we're going to have an article on one that Mike built recently. I certainly think, synthetic decks can look great. I mean, they're gorgeous, choose the right materials that fit well with the house and use the materials well. And so, yeah, I think that's just very personal.
What would you put on, or what are you going to put on your new house, Mike? What's your decking plan?
It'll be a Matt Milham original. It'll be pavers or a natural stone. Patio. No deck, no wood deck. I don't have a wood deck.
You're the deck guy. What the heck?
He's built enough of them.
Well, talking about CCA versus ACQ, MCQ, all the different flavors of decking of treated lumber now. I always think about the frame. That's where I focus my attention, because what we put on top, we can change that out relatively quickly and easily. And I'm just wondering, I can't recall, have we done an article in Fine Homebuilding about all the different use categories of the different types of pressure treated lumber that are available? Because if not, that's one thing when people are building decks, they should really spend a little bit of time, contractors or homeowners, deciding on what lumber they're going to use if it's pressure treated lumber. Because you can get, what's the difference between a UC3A, UC3B, UC4A, B, and C? If I was building a deck today, I would use UC4B at a minimum. It's not going to be what's stocked in most lumber yards, but it's going to give you a much more durable deck. Mm-hmm. Where we get hung up sometimes is in ground contact or above ground, but there are different levels of treatment even within the ground contact category. So it'd be nice to decipher that for people.
Well, Doug Horgan's piece does include that little chart from, is it the Forest Products Lab that does the research on use categories?
I don't know who does the research, but it's the AWPA, American Wood Preservers Association, that developed that system depending on the retention levels of the different treatments that go into the wood.
I'd love to talk to someone about the chemistry of it all, because I'm curious if it's the chemicals leaching out of the material, or if it doesn't penetrate as well, or if there are certain organisms that are less affected by it. What I find on my own deck is something that Doug Horgan talks about in this piece, which is this kind of white fungus, which is something I don't ever remember seeing on CCA treated decks. And I wonder if it's somehow resistant to the copper treatments, or at least partially. It's fascinating to me, because think about the money that is spent on outdoor structures annually. It is a big bill.
Mm-hmm.